Hello and welcome to Chasing Growth. The purpose is to encourage Christian leaders to get better. When you get better, everybody wins at your church, at your ministry, your organization, at your family. Today, I want to encourage you. If you are somebody who have influence, maybe you coaching your son baseball team, a soccer team, basketball team. Let me tell you, you do have an influence. And if happen that you are a Christian, you are a Christian leader. Don't fall for the idea that Christian leadership is only for those who serve in a church or ministry. If you're a Christian and you have influence, you are a Christian leader as well. So you have the responsibility to grow, to get better, to influence the world around you to get better. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stopping by today. And today I want to talk about something that I believe a lot of organizations and people is dealing with. And this has to do with the pressure from the outside. During COVID-19, we saw how many churches have been dealing with the pressure from the government to close, to do the specific things. We also have seen companies and organizations also from dealing with the pressure from the government to have people vaccinated or not. And I'm not talking about if the vaccine is good or bad or whatever. All I'm talking about this pressure, because this pressure can come from the government, but also this pressure comes from the culture. This pressure comes from the circumstances around us, around the organizations, around you, around your leadership. So today I want to encourage you to know what to do about it and a decision you have to make. But let me start with this. Let me start with this story. During World War II, in the concentration camps, these were people who was dealing with horrible circumstances. They lost family members, they lost children, they lost wife, and they were killed in the most horrible ways. And they were in this concentration camp surviving every day, and any day could be the last day. Any moment could be the last moment. But there's so many stories of some of these people in these concentration camps where they will have, uh, a piece of bread, and they will share it with somebody else. They will share somebody else, and even though this piece of bread maybe was the only thing between surviving another day or maybe another week, they were willing to give it away to somebody who they thought needed more. This kind of attitudes is not necessarily natural. Many other people who was in those places, they didn't do that, but there were many stories where people actually did that. How in the world they were able to don't give up to the pressure? And again, this pressure, I mean, you cannot compare it to anything else. This thing was horrible, and they didn't give up to this pressure. I think about my dad. When I grew up in Chile, South America, I remember we used to be under this military dictatorship, very tough, very hard. And there were times when the government would say there's curfew, nobody can go anywhere. And I remember there were things like we didn't have milk or we didn't have bread, and we were just stuck in the house without those things, and we have to suck it up and deal with it. But what was very interesting to me, it was the curfews also happened on Sunday evening, and in those days we used to go to the church Sunday morning and Sunday evening. And I do remember that regardless of the curfew, we will still go to church. And I remember coming back from church and the curfew was going on. There were protests, there were tire burnings on the street and people fighting, and we have to take all these different routes to get home. Sometimes a 20-minute ride will take, over an hour to get home, avoiding all these things. And then the other problem we have that we couldn't be stopped and my dad being arrested because breaking the curfew. So why he was okay, breaking the curfew, if we were missing milk or we didn't have any food, he was okay with just sucking it up and being at home. And he was not okay with not going to church. And what it is, between the same thing that my dad experienced and the same thing that people was experiencing in concentration camp was the understanding that the only thing that can change that inner freedom that we have to decide is ourselves, and everything else come second, and everything else doesn't matter, and you're willing to deal with the consequences. The person in the concentration camp that was willing to be more human and help somebody else to survive, putting their own existence at risk, it was out of their inner freedom given by God, and deciding that in their inner freedom to be different, to be better than what the circumstances demand. In my dad's case, for example, his conviction that in that inner freedom to say, you know what, the government can take this away. It's okay. They can take my food away. They can take these things away, but they won't take my desire to worship my God with other Christians. Doesn't matter the consequences. Doesn't matter the consequences. So let me ask you this: are you giving up to the pressures of the maybe the government, maybe the culture? Are you giving up? Are you giving up to the pressure of the circumstances that you live in and today, and the thing that were convictions to you? You're compromising them. So listen, only you in that inner freedom, you can decide who you want to become. In that inner freedom, you have to decide what type of leader you're going to be. In that inner freedom, you have to decide what type of father, what type of mother. In that inner freedom, you have to decide what type of organization you're going to run. And you say, well, I'm not running an organization, but I'm telling you, if you're a father, you're running an organization, your family. If you are a manager of a small group, you're running an organization, that small department. So in your inner freedom, in that inner freedom given by God, you have to decide who you are and who you become, no matter what, regardless of the consequences, the pressures of the government or the pressure on the culture are going to bring. Today, we live in a time when churches and ministries are giving up to those things. Things that used to be close-handed belief, they become like, not that important. We accept and we try to be in the argument when people say, you know what, I love Jesus, but I don't go to church, and we start accepting the things and we say I love Jesus, but I think the Old Testament is unfair, and we kind of, it's okay, and we receive those things. I got to tell you, these things are not okay. They're not good. And you as a leader, as a Christian leader, as a father, as a mother, in that inner freedom, only you can decide who you want to be and who you become. Nobody else, regardless of circumstances. And then you can be willing to be fearless and be willing to pay the consequences of your decision of who you're gonna be and who you're gonna become. We live in a time when this postmodern type of culture where people believe their feelings are reality. So, for example, you know the story. We watch a video, a policeman does something bad, one policeman does something bad, and then that make you feel bad. So because that made me feel bad, and that may be truth because I feel bad, so that may be reality. So all policemen are bad. So people is constructing their reality out of feelings. Whatever experience they have, they feel one way, and because they feel that way, must be truth. And that's the truth is that that's not necessarily truth. And people is living in this ignorance type of time when they believe the feelings are true, and because I feel that way, you should honor that. And in the moment that you will go against that, they react in an aggressive way many times, and ways that shouldn't be accepted to respond. And they do respond that way because you're challenging the whole existence, because they have built their reality out of feelings. Sadly, the church is giving up to these things, and we cannot. The ministries, the organization cannot give up to this. We have to stay strong in our convictions, in that inner freedom given by God to decide who we are and who will become, and that won't be compromised regardless of the consequences, regardless of what possible can happen. Jail time because the government asking you to close the church. Maybe it will means you won't have enough because the culture is not giving you enough. All the things. Believe me, you have to decide today who will you become, who you are, and you are the only one who can decide it in the freedom, again, that inner freedom given by God. What thing you will be okay with the government taking away, and what things are not. And you say, well, we don't have to think so extremely. The time will come when you have to be prepared to do that as a leader, and they can come in different ways. It cannot be as extreme as the government demanding something, but can be a temptation. Can be a temptation to do something. So many people, I heard this after COVID, so many people got so comfortable, especially Christian, not going to church, that many of them they're not coming back. They have decided in the inner freedom, in that inner freedom given by God, that it's okay. So whatever was there before, it has been compromised. So the question for you is, When you think about that inner freedom that only you can decide who you are and who you become, what can you find there? Or are you a leader, for example, that's more comfortable being likable, and so because you want to be likable, you start compromising things that you believe, and because you want to be accepted by this new generation, you start doing and dressing some ways and accepting things in your organization that maybe 2 years ago you didn't accept, and you were completely convinced that was the right thing to do, but now because you crossing those boundaries because you want to be likable. So this is not just pressure that can come in the form of just the government and laws, but also from the culture and the people around you. Who will you become? Who you are? Only you can decide that in that inner being given by God. Only you can decide this, and I'm telling you, you have to do it, and so you don't start compromising. This week I faced that. I have to make a difficult decision about somebody who I care about, somebody who I think I find valuable to as a friend, and as somebody who I know and I care for. And I have to explain something very difficult, because in my convictions, in my inner freedom, I have decided to be the best leader possible, a fair leader, a leader who treats everybody the same, even if some people I like, some people I don't like, some people I can get along because personality, but I have decided to be a leader who doesn't go for the things, who care more about being respected and not be likable, a leader who will do right even when it's painful. And because that, I have to do what I did. You know what? I could have compromised and do what nobody knew. I could have gone another way. Nobody need to know what I believe. But I have to answer that question to myself. What I have decided to be and have decided to become as a leader in my inner freedom that God has given me, I was willing to compromise it or not. And as hard as it was, as difficult it was, because I already decided in my inner freedom, again, remember that, to become this leader, to be this leader, I made a difficult choice. And we all have to be there. We have to remember this. So I want to encourage you to think about this, to be thinking about who have you decided to be and who you will become in that inner freedom that nobody can change. Only you. No circumstances, no pressure, no nothing. And how much of that have you been already giving away? How much of that you have been compromising already? How much of that you have been selling out? And you losing who you are, and you losing who you were called to be, and you losing it because you compromise that in that what you already decided in that inner freedom that God gave you. So I hope this encouraged you to think about this. I hope this give you made you fearless and the courage to face whatever your organization or yourself, those pressures that you're having, the thing that attacking you, the thing that coming against you, to remember that doesn't matter the consequences. Listen, that decision that you made in your inner freedom, that who you are and who you become, can cost your job, can cost your, the well-being of your family to some extent. But it's that freedom given by God, that in that freedom He have given you that space to do it. And when you do it, and you don't compromise, and you live by those convictions, you will be able to, one day maybe you will give an account to all this, and only you will know. So please remember this. Please remember that we all have to decide this. Don't let others decide, and don't let the culture decide. Don't let the government to decide. Don't let nothing to decide, but just you. Who will you become and who you are in that inner freedom that God has given you. God bless you. Have a great week. Thank you for listening and taking the time to listen all this. God bless you. Subscribe, share with your friends, tell them about Chasing Growth. Make a review if you listen in the podcast. That will definitely help. God bless you. Have a great week.